Stop taking semaglutide, the medication most people know as Ozempic, and within a year, about 2/3 of the weight you lost tends to come right back. And almost no one explains why. So here it is. The drug was never changing your weight. It was quieting your hunger. Underneath it, your body kept defending the same number it always has. The day you stop, it picks that fight right back up. This isn't your willpower failing you. It's biology, doing exactly what it was built to do. Maybe you're on it right now. The scale is finally moving, your clothes fit again, and underneath the relief sits a question you haven't said out loud. What happens when I stop? Because at some point you might. The cost, the supply, your doctor's call, or you simply want your life back without a weekly shot. And the not knowing just sits there. Or maybe you already stopped. You watched the weight ease back on, and you did what almost everyone does. You blamed yourself. You decided you'd gone soft, and you went hunting for the discipline you were sure you'd lost. So let me be clear with you, because no one else has bothered to be. You did not lose your discipline. You lost a medication that was doing a job your willpower was never built to do on its own. Here's what makes it so disorienting. For the first time in years, the background noise around food went quiet. The reach for a second helping, the 3 o'clock pull toward the kitchen, the thought of dinner an hour after lunch. Gone. That silence felt like the real you finally stepping forward. It wasn't. It was the drug, turning down a signal your body never agreed to turn down for good. So think of the medication less as a finish line and more as a bridge. A bridge is useful. It carries you across something you couldn't cross alone. But it only helps if you know what's waiting on the other side. And most people are handed this one with no map at all. Let me give you the map. A few minutes from now, I'll show you what your body starts doing in the weeks after that final dose, and why the hunger doesn't just return to normal. It comes back with a plan. There's a precise reason for that, and once you see it, this whole thing stops feeling like a character flaw and starts making cold, mechanical sense. Then, partway through, I'll walk you through what the largest withdrawal studies found when they followed people for a full year after the last dose, including one result that caught the researchers themselves off guard. The headline has been clear since 2022. What's underneath it is the part nobody prints on the label. And here's what should give you real hope. 2/3 is an average, and an average always hides the people at both ends of it. A real group come off this drug and keep the weight off. Not most of them, but far from nobody. And what sets them apart has almost nothing to do with luck or genetics or some superhuman reserve of self-control. It's a short list of specific things they did, and the part that matters most is this. Nearly all of them did it before they ever stopped. By the end, you'll know exactly what those things are. Whether you're taking this today, weighing whether to start, or already on the far side of it wondering what went wrong, you'll leave with the full picture instead of the fear. So let's start where the story really begins, with what's happening inside your body while the drug is still working. Because to understand the fall, you first have to understand the catch. So let's go back to that catch. What's really happening inside you while the drug is still working? Here's what almost no one explains. This medication isn't a weight loss drug in the way you picture it. It's a messenger. It copies a hormone your own gut releases every time you eat, called GLP-1. Your body has always made it. The injection just floods you with a long-lasting version, around the clock, at levels you could never reach on your own. And most of the work doesn't happen in your stomach. It happens in your head. A 2025 review in the American Journal of Medicine mapped exactly where. The drug acts on the hunger control room of your brain, the hypothalamus and the brainstem, turning up the signals for fullness and turning down the ones for hunger. It also slows gastric emptying, so food lingers and you stay satisfied longer. And it does the thing people describe as almost eerie. It quiets the food noise. That endless background chatter, what's for lunch, what's in the cabinet, just stops. On top of that, the drug lowers ghrelin, the hormone your empty stomach pumps out to scream that it's time to eat. Turn ghrelin down, and the screaming goes quiet. So far, so wonderful. Now the cruel arithmetic. None of that was bought. It was borrowed. The day the medication clears your system, every one of those borrowed signals switches off, and what's underneath has been wide awake the whole time. Because your body runs an internal thermostat for your weight. It picks a number it has decided is home and defends that number with everything it's got. The American Association of Clinical Endocrinology, in its latest clinical guidelines, said it without flinching. Your body fat is biologically defended. That defended weight has a name, your set point, and your set point never got the memo that you dropped the weight. In fact, it's alarmed. When the weight came off, your fat cells shrank, and that pulled down leptin, the hormone that reports to your brain how much fuel you have in reserve. To the brain, low leptin reads like famine, so it does the only thing a survival machine can do. It cranks hunger back up and goes hunting for calories to replace what's gone. This is where it all comes together. A 2025 meta-analysis in the journal eClinical Medicine pooled the research on stopping these drugs, and the pattern held. The medication's appetite suppression disappears, while the body's defense program, rising hunger signals, falling fullness signals, reawakened appetite circuits, keeps running at full power. That's why hunger doesn't gently return to normal. It comes back as a coordinated mission to put the weight back on. Not random, a plan. And here's the only sentence that matters. Your body cannot tell the difference between a diet and a famine. It isn't betraying you. It's trying to save your life from a danger that left years ago. But appetite is only half the story. At the very same time, a second shift is happening, one that has nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with how much fuel you burn just staying alive. That one is the hinge the whole thing turns on, and it's exactly where the people who keep the weight off quietly win or lose. We'll get there. First, the question you're already asking. If the biology is this stacked, how much actually comes back? And does it hit everyone the same? That's where the research stops being reassuring and starts being surprising. So here's the part I promised you. What happens when researchers stop trading anecdotes and start running the numbers? Start with the most rigorous test anyone has done. In a trial called Step 4, published in 2021, people took the weekly shot for several months, lost a serious amount of weight, and were then split at random into two groups. One kept taking the drug, the other was quietly switched to a placebo. Same routine, same injection, no active ingredient inside it. Nobody knew which group they were in. The people still on the drug kept losing. The people on the placebo started climbing, almost right away. Same lives, same effort, same willpower. The only thing that changed was the molecule. That is about as close to proof as medicine gets that the regain isn't about you. It's about the absence of the drug. Then came the bigger, more sobering one. A 2024 trial in the Journal of the American Medical Association tested tirzepatide, a newer dual-target medication that mimics not one but two gut hormones at once, including a second one called GIP. Sold as Zepbound, it produces some of the steepest weight loss we have ever recorded. People dropped roughly a fifth of their entire body weight. Then, for the ones switched off it, the floor gave way. They regained about 14%, while the group who stayed on lost even more. The distance between staying and stopping was enormous, close to 20 percentage points. But the finding that genuinely unsettled the researchers came in a follow-up analysis published just last year. When they looked closely, it wasn't only the weight that came back. The gains in blood pressure, in cholesterol, in blood sugar, the quiet, invisible improvements that actually protect your heart and your arteries, drifted right back toward where they started. More than 8 in 10 people who stopped regained at least a quarter of what they'd lost within a year. The scale was the headline. Your blood work was the real story underneath it. Now, before I show you the single blind spot that every one of these studies shares and why it might be the most important thing in this entire video, if you're getting something out of this, take a second and hit subscribe. Back to it. Here's the blind spot. Every one of those trials tested the exact same thing, stopping cold. One day a full dose, the next day nothing. And in most of them, the structured support disappeared at that same moment. So what the research actually proves is the danger of the cliff edge. Not that the weight is destined to return. Not that you're chained to this drug for the rest of your life, Those are very different claims, and almost everyone blurs them together into a single scary headline. And right there is the crack of daylight. Inside that same pile of evidence, a real share of people did not gain it all back. In the longest follow-up of them all, nearly half were still carrying a meaningful loss a full year after their final dose. They didn't have luckier genetics. They weren't white-knuckling it harder than everyone else. They had done something specific, and it traces straight back to that second shift I mentioned, the one that has nothing to do with hunger. That shift is exactly where we go next, because it is the difference between the people who walked all the way across the bridge and the people who fell off it. So here's that second shift, the one that has nothing to do with appetite. It catches almost everyone off guard because it isn't about what goes into your mouth. It's about what you quietly lose while the weight falls. Not all of that weight is fat. When the scale drops this fast, a real slice of what leaves you is muscle. Researchers at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard reported in 2025 that as much as 40% of the weight people shed on these drugs can come from lean mass, muscle, not fat. Most of it is still fat, that's the good news. But losing up to 2/5 of it as muscle is a problem hiding in plain sight. Here's why that matters. Muscle is the most expensive tissue you own. It burns energy around the clock, even while you sleep, even while you sit perfectly still. The more of it you carry, the higher your resting metabolic rate, the calories you spend simply being alive. So when muscle walks out the door, that number drops with it. It's part of what scientists call metabolic adaptation. After weight loss, your body genuinely runs on less fuel than before. Smaller engine, lower burn. And that's before the appetite storm even arrives. And the timing is cruel. Somewhere in your 40s, you already begin losing muscle every single year, a slow, silent drain called sarcopenia. Stack fast, drug-driven loss on top of that, and you can step off the medication with a weaker engine than the one you started with. It gets worse on the way back up. When the weight returns, and you know now why it tries to, it comes back mostly as fat, not as the muscle you lost. So without a plan, each round of this can leave you with more fat and less muscle than before you ever began. Now here's the part you actually control, and it's the whole reason some people walk away clean. Muscle answers to 2 signals. The first is resistance training, lifting something heavy enough to tell your body that muscle is still needed, not scrap to be broken down for parts. The second is enough protein, the raw material to rebuild with. That same Harvard team found that people who ate more protein held on to more of their muscle. And muscle is far more than an engine. It's where you clear blood sugar after a meal, and it's a quiet guardian of your bones. Then comes the cleanest proof of all. A Copenhagen team took people who had just lost weight and split them 4 ways: the drug alone, exercise alone, both together, or neither. The combination held the weight off best, which is no surprise. But here's the part that matters. They kept following everyone for a full year after every treatment was stopped. The people who had built exercise in during those months kept far more of their loss than the drug-only group, who, a year later, had drifted back to barely 30 minutes of movement a week, while the active ones were still logging 240. The habit outlived the drug. That is what the people who keep it off actually did. They treated the quiet months on the medication not as the end of the work, but as a window, and they used it to build the engine that keeps working once the drug is gone. So if you're on it right now, hold on to one sentence. The drug isn't only buying you weight loss, it's buying you time to build what holds it. But building the engine is only half of it. The other half is how you step off the drug itself. And that's where even the people who did everything right still slip. That's where we go last. So let's talk about the dismount, because this is where even the people who did everything right still go down. Almost everyone treats stopping as a single moment, a last injection, and done. It isn't. It's a transition that plays out over weeks. The drug doesn't vanish the day you skip a dose. It fades. And as it fades, the appetite your body had been holding quiet wakes back up. The people who stumble are the ones it ambushes. The people who don't are the ones who saw it coming and had something waiting. Start with the principle that matters most, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Remember those trials where the weight came roaring back? In most of them, the structured support, the coaching, the eating plan, the regular check-ins, was pulled at the very same moment as the drug. Everything disappeared at once. So the lesson the research keeps pointing to is this: whatever has been holding you steady has to outlive the medication. The structure, the habits, the support, they can't be things the drug was quietly doing for you. They have to be things you keep doing after it's gone. And one of those supports gets ignored more than any other, and it has nothing to do with the gym or the kitchen. It's sleep. When you're running short on it, your body turns the hunger dial up and weakens the brake on appetite. Exactly the wrong combination at exactly the wrong moment. A University of Chicago trial showed just how strong this is. Overweight adults who simply extended their sleep ate measurably less without changing a single other thing in their lives. Protecting your sleep through this stretch isn't a soft, optional extra. It's one of the few levers that quietly makes every other one easier to pull. Then there's the mindset that separates a wobble from a full relapse. Don't wait. The people who keep it off don't pretend the hunger won't return. They expect it, and they decide ahead of time what they'll do when it shows up. And they watch the trend, not the daily number. A pound or two drifting upward isn't failure, it's information. The early signal to lean back into your structure, or to go back to the person who prescribed the drug and talk through what comes next, while that drift is still small and easy to reverse. The relapse almost never happens in a day. It happens in the weeks you keep promising yourself you'll deal with it later. Now, the biggest question of all, whether you step down slowly, pause, or stay on the medication longer, is not mine to answer, and it's not one to settle alone at your kitchen table. That belongs to the doctor who prescribed it, built around your body, your history, and where you're trying to go. But here's the reframe that pulls the shame out of it. The scientists who ran those withdrawal studies arrived at the same place the whole field is heading, that excess weight behaves like a chronic condition, closer to high blood pressure than to a broken bone. We don't tell someone their blood pressure pill failed because they still need it. And if it turns out your body needs longer-term help to hold the line, that is not weakness, and it is not the end of your effort. It's biology, handled honestly. So that's the map. Why the weight fights to return, what the research actually proved, what the people who keep it off quietly built, and how to step off without falling. There's just one thing left, the single idea that ties all of it together, and the one I most want you to walk out of here holding. So here's the one idea I want you to carry out of here, the thread running underneath everything we've covered. The weight coming back was never a verdict on your character. It's what a body does. Yours spent months, maybe years, treating a shrinking waistline as an emergency and fighting to reverse it, because somewhere deep in its wiring, losing fat still reads as losing your chance to survive a winter that isn't coming. That's not a flaw in you. It's a feature in all of us. And no amount of willpower was ever going to out-argue a survival instinct that old. But here's the half almost no one says in the same breath, and it's the half that should change how you feel walking away from this. The thing that keeps the weight off was never going to be the drug either. The injection was always a loan, not a cure. What holds the line is the body you protect and the system you build while the medication quiets the noise long enough to let you do it. So hold both of these at once. The regain is not your fault, and the maintenance is not out of your hands. That's the whole game. Not the molecule. You. So the question you walked in with, what happens when I stop, you can finally answer. Not with that low hum of dread, but with something close to a map. You know why the hunger returns, and that it isn't a sign of weakness. You know which part of your body to guard so your own metabolism doesn't quietly turn against you. You know the supports that have to outlast the prescription. And you know that the decision about the medication itself belongs in a real conversation with your doctor, not in a panic and not alone. Whether you're on it tonight, easing off it, weighing whether to start, or standing in the wreckage of a regain you blamed entirely on yourself, let that last one go. Your body was running an ancient program, flawlessly, against an emergency that had already passed. The difference now is simple. You've seen the playbook. And once you can see it, for the first time, you get to play it back. At the very start, I ask you to stop picturing this medication as a finish line and to see it as a bridge instead. Here's the rest of that thought. You know what's on the far side now. No more guessing. And you know what a bridge is actually for. You walk across it, you don't build a house on it, and you stop fearing the other bank the moment you've already mapped the ground. If you want the kind of science your doctor wishes they had 15 minutes to walk you through, subscribe and I'll keep them coming, a new one each week. And if there's a question you want answered next, leave it in the comments. I read every one, and they're what shape what I make. Next time, I'm going deeper into the part we only sketched here, the day-to-day system the people who keep it off actually run, how they eat, move, and structure the months after the drug, in plain, doable steps. If that's the video you need, it'll be waiting for you. You were never the problem. You just hadn't been handed the whole picture. Now you have. I'll see you in the next one.